I heard Meek Mill in an interview say, every day on these North Philly streets was like Squid Game.
Squid Game is the first time that I've seen non-Asian IG accounts make memes about something Asian. Welcome everybody to the Hop Hop Boys. David and Andrew here. We got to talk about why Squid Game is so popular.
And I don't think people expected it. I heard that Netflix South Korea, they knew it was good, but they had no idea that Western audiences, which are typically kind of like hesitant to embrace in-language Asian-faced content, not Pokemon, not animes, they really latched onto it.
We're talking about the #1 Netflix show on the American market. Yeah. That was not expected. Now, a lot more people are watching non-English content nowadays, right? Through Netflix. There's a lot of great Spanish series as well. Narcos, I watched the whole thing, right? In Spanish. But guys, this is big because, and this is just on a one level, but I'm seeing everybody blog about it, write about it, but I've seen so many non-Asian IG accounts make memes about it. Like the hood accounts, the more whiter accounts, everybody.
And I think it's just an advancement of where Parasite was at, because if you really look at Parasite winning the Oscar in 2019, a lot of the literati and a lot of the really educated people like to write about it, and they saw the class struggle. But I think the everyday person that you would meet on the street, it was a little bit over their head, hard to digest. Some of the culture was different. Do you know what I'm saying? But they can get into Squid Games because it's talking about the human condition, very much like Battle Royale, Lord of the Flies, even like Legends of the Hidden Temple, but with death, you know?
Well, I want to say that the story plot of Squid Games is unique in the games that they're playing, but this whole idea of putting a bunch of strangers together and see who's going to survive and who's going to be greedy and seeing all the human emotion, it is a story that has been played out, but it's just, this is a good version. It's very visual. Now, here's my thing. This is kind of like similar to a Psy Gangnam Style moment where, because Psy was on YouTube, YouTube's free, Netflix, everybody has Netflix. It's not like Parasite where you had to go watch it at the movie theater. So that's why I think the number of people who saw it was less. But this is a series that everybody can dive into because so many people have Netflix. It's very accessible.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, I think it's different because it has to do a lot with the human condition. I believe in Squid Games, they're playing children's games, but like elevated stakes, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I just think that South Korea, between Parasite on one end, BTS, and then Old Boy, but this being a continuation of Old Boy, like Squid Games with the gore, but the thrilling and the emotion and the K-drama aspect, you're forming a triangulation of South Korean content where it's not just one style. People are relating to the ability to address human condition issues. And I actually think it's related to the fact that a lot of stuff in the West has become, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, it's so like got too many layers now because there's a lot of racial, religious stuff that really wasn't in Squid Game.
Yeah, Squid Game is not political, and I think that's why a lot of people do gravitate towards some of the Asian movies because they're going to deal more with class because, to be honest, they are more homogenous societies. As you can see in the cast, there's only like 3 people of those contestants that are not Korean.
You see some of those people in South Korea working.
So you see some slight like racial talk in there about the guy being Pakistani, but really no, it's not about identity politics. It's more about class. Same with Parasite, right? It was more about these people who are coming up from the bottom. How do they get there? And I think in Korea, there is a lot of like feeling and angst and pain, you know, whether
about class too,
whether it's from their history, right? Because South Korea as a country has come up pretty hard in the last 60, 70 years.
The quickest rise in history, but economically.
Yeah, and they also like the extreme like gore because they can take it because I think there's low crime rates and no guns, but there's also this weird fascination with violence, you know, that's related to the Japanese as well. Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting show, but it's very consumable for all types of people.
Yeah, I think that when you take a look at a country that at least seemingly on the outside, first world countries in Asia, whether that's Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, to a certain extent, you feel like everything is so stable that they have to almost create this game to have that. In another country, that the Squid Games might be taking place on the streets, or there's too many elements of the Squid Game in actual everyday life where a suspended reality fantasy version, like we saying, Squid Game kind of takes place in this K-pop like color blocking with the crazy shapes and color. It doesn't look like a real place. It makes more sense, you know, to take it to that fantasy realm versus a country where it's like, they're still really coming out of that.
Yeah. Also, violence is just relatable to America because America is kind of this kind of crazy country. There's a lot of violence in this country as well. So I think that people are drawn to it. Like, I'm trying to look at it from a non-K-pop listeners aspect because here's the difference about BTS. BTS is huge, But like I'm saying that it doesn't, it reaches more of the sphere of people who are into maybe like Korean food as well. But I'm saying this show is reaching people who may have never had kimchi and never had Korean barbecue.
Because I saw some urban pages or, you know, into hip hop culture reference Sang-woo to Cameron's character in Paid in Full.
Yeah.
Which is like, if you guys both know, they're the most treacherous, calculating characters.
Yeah. So I think that with the extreme emotion and the high stakes and the violence of Squid Game, it kind of takes it out of the bubblegum kind of like, this is super, this is too Asian. Like, I don't get it. You get it because it's relatable. You understand the greed. Everybody's looking at this piggy bank of money that's filling up. And it's just like that feeling is across the globe.
I felt like it was more like, I haven't seen people follow a series like this with this type of similar context since Prison Break 20 years ago. Prison Break, if you guys know, pop of the show, like they're all trying to escape from prison. There's people double crossing each other. There's people on teams. There's all types of stuff going on.
I think maybe because the writer of Squid Game, he wrote it like 10 years ago and he got turned down for like 8 years with this script. But I think like it's kind of funny to think that it came at the most perfect time for it to go viral.
I think that to me, when I take a look at, take a step back, and I got to give huge props to the South Korean government, South Korean entertainment industry, all the creators, the artists, whether that's, you know, everybody from like a Bong Joon-ho, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the writer of Squid Game right now, but I think that they are able to capture something about the human condition that is unique enough and Eastern enough to make it feel different and like, I can believe this from you guys like looking this way, but also Western enough to appeal to both hemispheres. Because if you really think about it, there's like Eastern content and then there's Western content and they're pretty split. You know what I mean? Like Western people think one way, which is Socrates, Plato. Eastern people have more like Buddhism and Taoism or Confucianism. So I really think that Korean content is able to capture both together. And if you guys know about the history of Korea, very close ties with America.
Yo, is Squid Game kind of like the Korean corn dog right now? You know how Korean corn dogs are everywhere? Like these chains are opening up and it's like easy, it's accessible to people, it's affordable, everybody can get it. It's like this American thing, but it's kind of elevated.
Or the Japanese mochi donuts.
Yeah, or the Japanese mochi donuts. All right, question, David. So I feel like escape rooms, you know, where you got to figure out the clues and escape the room, though the popularity of that has risen since like Saw. Which is Saw, those movies is essentially like escape rooms. So do you think Squid Game is about to inspire some type of like Squid Game tournaments or sort of organizations? Like even like I could see churches obviously taking out any sort of the violence of it, but like running their own Squid Game inspired like
for
days,
sure
like
there's
I'll
tell you this, there is a Korean American youth pastor looking to capitalize on Squid Games. I think that one thing we got to talk about, Andrew, and this is us being Chinese, is like Chinese content is viewed at like, you know, at least in a translatable way to the West, like a 1 out of 10. Let's say, for example, Squid Game is like a 10 out of 10 in terms of like, yo, this is great in Korea. This is great outside of Korea. I feel like Chinese content, it could be viewed as like a 7 out of 10 in China. You know what I mean? Like a lot of that wuxia pian, you know, a lot of the stuff that's like centered, and it ranks like maybe 1 or 2 out of 10 in the West.
Well,
like it's completely non-translatable, whether it's even a modern piece or a like more ancient dynastic piece.
I'm gonna be honest. I think that this conversation could continue for a lot longer, but let's just compare it to a lot of British media. Downton Abbey, you got Bridgerton, you got I'm not even saying that right, Bridgerton, and then you have the Peaky Blinders.
I mean, I consider Game of Thrones British content too.
Game of Thrones, no, these are things that like a lot of the most popular crossover hit British shows are based in the past. Just like all the popular Chinese shows that have not all of them really have been crossovers yet.
Except Once Upon a Time in China, yeah, but that was a movie.
Yeah, so it's kind of like they always have to go in the past for like a culture that everybody is familiar with, right? But Korea has a little bit shorter of a history in the sense that, first of all, Korea has been around for obviously a long time, but as far as being like a developed like nation
when
with
you think
media
of when you think of Korea, you definitely think of the modern era, sleek stuff, Samsung, LGs.
You're thinking of the beautiful people and all the cool dances and the singing and food and stuff like that. And obviously, South Korea media, they have had a lot of reps in trying to make stuff that can appeal to a larger market because the internal Korean market is not very big. While Japan's market is almost big enough where if they just cover their own people, they can kind of make money. Yeah. And China's in a different way where China's so big, you don't have to make stuff for anybody else.
You don't even try to appeal to a single person.
But think about it. South Korea is constantly trying to make content that can appeal to everybody.
Not only do I think that South Korea tries, but I actually think they have the capacity and the cultural foundation to have a way of interpersonal relationship that's more relatable. But basically, the way Koreans interact with each other, it's different enough from people in the West, but it's similar enough. It's not so different where it's like, man, y'all just so different. I can't even relate to this. People are just like, man, they're kind of like me, but kind of different. I see it.
Well, think about it. All the men have to do mandatory military service, and their military is probably primarily based off the American military.
Yeah, it's dope. Shout out to Squid Game. I think that this is going to spark a lot more because people are going to be aiming for this like global financial success. At the end of the day, guys, you guys know about entertainment media as much as it is based around content, it is also based around ROI and just making money. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's dope. I mean, we went from like K-pop to Parasite to Squid Game, so I don't know what the next thing is.
Guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Let us know in the comments down below what you think about the impact of Squid Game. You know, hopefully we talked about some factors that maybe people are not talking about as much, guys. So thank you. This is the Hot Pot Boys, and until next time, we out.